Hey friends, happy Friday. Wow, that was like a very quick duck in. So we're cooking today, very exciting. We are making my favorite breakfast. So this is like basically the perfect breakfast or even pre-breakfast if you're up really early that you can eat. So we're gonna do a little cooking together today. So what we're making is, I feel weird that you can't see me. We're making stewed apples. So we're gonna start by peeling and coring our apple. I have a nice big juicy apple over here. And if you don't have fancy peeling coring tools, you can always just use a knife, right? That works, and just chop it up. So you want to start with getting all the skin off so that we have nice clean apple. I've never done a cooking video before. Oh, now you guys can see me. Hi. I guess it's not surprising that I haven't done a cooking video. I honestly, I don't cook much for myself these days, but this is something that I do cook and I absolutely love for breakfast. So before I start cutting my apple, so these are your ingredient list, and I'll post this in the comments also. Ghee, which is clarified butter. This is some that I made myself. You can optionally add cloves, ginger, and cinnamon, any or all three. I like all three in mine. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get, and this is like really great recipe, you don't have to measure anything. So I'm just going to get a little bit of ghee in my pan here. Not even like quite a teaspoon. And I'm just going to get this firing up. And let that start to warm. And what we're going to do is add the spices before we add anything else. And just let them cook for a minute in the ghee so that it can just kind of like activate the spices, kind of. Think about it as like turning them on, giving them a little heat before we add everything else in our recipe, kind of toasting them up a little bit. So we're going to add whole cloves to the ghee right now, since they're a whole spice. That's why we want to kind of do that little bit of a toast on those spices, and then and like nice low heat for this. So I'm gonna add, I do 2 cloves for like 1 serving, which is 1 apple. So I'm just gonna let those cloves simmer in there for a minute while I cut my apple. And you can leave this in like nice big hunks like this if you like. I like to cut it up into like little bite-sized pieces. So like that size on my apple. Now in Ayurveda, it talks a lot about eating fresh food, not having leftovers. And apples are a good way to kind of think about this. So if you go apple picking and you pick that apple off the tree, it's like the best apple you ever ate, right? We've all done that. You eat that one on the farm and it's just so good. And that is, theory behind it is that apple is so full of prana, or energy, that life force, and that's why it's so good. So that's why Ayurveda says we shouldn't have leftovers and we should cook our food fresh. So right now I'm taking this fresh apple. It's got, not quite as much life force as that fresh one from the tree, but pretty close. And I'm cooking it right now, so it's got the most energy, the most good stuff in it, the most nutrients, and it's like the best it can be. Now, that's hard, especially in today's world. We're really busy. It's not easy to do that. I'm going to add my apple here. Take that off the heat for a second. And then we're going to add a little bit of water to this. So we want to simmer the apples. And again, there's no real measuring here, so you just want to add enough water to kind of cover your apples. You guys can kind of see in that pan there. So there's just a little bit of water. We're just going to let them simmer and cook. That ghee is also really great, especially this time of year. I'm going to throw out all these words that you guys might not know what they mean. It's vata season, so it's really cold and dry right now, so our bodies are craving warm, oily, and that doesn't mean french fries. That means like ghee foods. So that's what we really need right now to nourish ourselves. So think about stuff that's in season, right? Apples are in season right now. In the fall, that's when we get to pick them. So, but this is good all year round. So I'm going to add my ginger and cinnamon now. And again, like as much as you like, you know, this is to taste. Start with, you know, a little, and then figure out how much you like in your apples. And like I said, you could add none of these. You could do just the apples, or you can do all of them. Everything is not working. There we go. So yeah, so cinnamon, ginger, cloves. That's what I do in mine. We've got 1 apple in here. About a teaspoon or so of ghee. And I like to throw some raisins in mine too. So I'm going to throw a handful of raisins in here. And I like to throw them in now at the beginning so that they can kind of soften while this cooks also. So this is super easy to make in the morning. You can kind of just let this simmer while you're doing your other stuff, while you make your warm lemon water, right? That's what I like to have mine with. I try to have my apples and my warm lemon or warm lime water before I start pumping the coffee. So I was a person that didn't eat breakfast. I wasn't hungry in the morning, so I just chugged the coffee, you know, IV drip of coffee, usually until lunchtime. Sometimes maybe I would bring a snack to the office, you know, a piece of fruit or maybe like a granola bar or something, to have as like a snack around maybe 9 or 10 o'clock, but I never ate breakfast before I left the house in the morning. And earlier this year, I worked one-on-one with an Ayurvedic practitioner, and this is how I got introduced to stewed apples. And they actually help kickstart your digestion. So if you're like me and you weren't hungry in the morning and you couldn't really eat breakfast, they help kickstart my digestion. So I found that I was hungry at lunchtime when I was eating the apples for breakfast every morning. And it's also really easy to digest. So it's a great way to break your fast, right? That's why we call it breakfast, because we're breaking that fast from the night before. So it's that great way to kickstart your system, get things moving again, really light and easy to digest. That's why I mentioned before that it can also be your pre-breakfast. So if you're up really, really early for work, or you start your day really early, maybe you're eating this at like 6 a.m. when you get up before you leave the house, and it's not going to quite hold you till lunchtime at like noon. So maybe you're going to need something else. So maybe around 8, 9 o'clock, you have some oatmeal or, whatever else you like to have for breakfast. Preferably something healthy, right? We'll leave it at oatmeal. And you can use the water from your apples if there's some left to make your oatmeal too. So it's got all that good stuff in it, that cinnamon and seasoning, and yummy, yummy, delicious. So how long you cook this is really up to you. So you can just let it simmer for a few minutes till they start to get soft and then eat. You can really let it cook down and let them get really mushy. But basically at the end, you get to have apple pie for breakfast. So that's what we're making right now, is apple pie for breakfast. And it's super healthy. It's good for you. It's going to balance our bodies this time of year because it's Vata season. So I know maybe you don't know what that means, and that's okay. Just think of it super simply like this. Right now, outside, cold and dry, body wants the opposite of that. So this is warm, gooey, delicious. We got that oil from the ghee. It's giving us everything we need to counterbalance everything that's going on outside to keep our bodies balanced and healthy. What else? I think that's it. So I'm gonna let this simmer for probably 5 to 10 more minutes. I like to really let it cook down and let it infuse with all of the seasonings and be delicious. So I'm not gonna make you watch the pot with me, but we're gonna let this cook down, and I'll share a photo also of my finished product with you. But yeah, try stewed apples. See how it works for you. I found it really life-changing, and when I stay on top of it, I feel much better than when I eat crap for breakfast, or I have coffee for breakfast, or I don't eat breakfast. Oh, and something I was going to tell you guys before, and I got sidetracked. So I was talking about no leftovers and cooking fresh in Ayurveda, and how some of you might be thinking, as I say that, that's totally unreasonable. I'm a meal prepper and I cook for 7 days at a time, or I don't even have time to cook. You want me to cook fresh all the time. And I get it, I really do. So I cheat a little bit. And typically when I make this for breakfast, today I cut an apple fresh for you guys. But typically I keep a bag of cut up apples in my freezer. And I know it's not perfect, and it's a little bit of a cheat against that fresh cooking that Ayurveda likes us to do. But I also know that I'm super lazy in the morning, and that if I have to cut an apple, which you guys did it with me, would it take a minute to peel and chop that apple? But I know that in the morning, I'm going to go, I don't want to cut an apple. I'm just going to have coffee, and I'm not going to eat an apple for breakfast. But if I buy a bag of apples at the store, and the next day when I make my stewed apple, I take the 10 minutes while it's cooking, and I cut and peel and chop all my other apples, and I throw them in a bag or a jar and put them in the freezer. That all week, I'll eat stewed apples for breakfast. And by flash freezing, it is kind of preserving that prana, that energy, right? It's not ideal. It's now like 2 steps away, but it's going to get it done for me. So for me, the trade-off of freezing my apples and having them available and actually eating it is worth it, because otherwise I'm not going to eat it. So you can be like me if you're super lazy in the morning and you know you're not going to want to peel an apple, and you can pre-chop some apples for the week. I don't do a lot at a time, like a week's worth, and then I have them. So that, like I said, I don't have to chop every day, because I've been there. I've fresh chopped, and I wake up in the morning and I go, especially like 6, 7 a.m. Like that's just so much effort, and it's just so much easier to take a handful, throw it in the pot with some stuff, and done. Apples. So up to you. I encourage fresh chopping and daily prepping. But if you're like me and that's just not going to happen, go ahead, freeze those apples, cut up 6 or 7 at a time. You can sprinkle some nuts on top too when it's done, if that's your jam. All seasonings and raisins are optional. And now I think that's actually all I have for you. So thanks for hanging out with me today for this week's Wellness Off the Mat. I will share an actual written recipe in the post along with a photo of my finished project. And if you guys try this or you're already eating it, send me a message, drop me a comment, let me know how it goes for you. Have a good weekend, guys, and have a happy Thanksgiving. I won't see you again before then. Bye.